Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Walker, and I'm the manager of athlete development here at USA Volleyball. Today, I have the privilege of being joined by Brooke Wyatt. Brooke is a sport dietitian here for us in the beach office in USA Volleyball, and she is also the owner of Long Game Nutrition. So Brooke is joining us today to talk a little bit about how athletes can be reflective about their sleep and their lifestyle and how that impacts their training. Thanks for joining us, Brooke.
Absolutely.
So to get the conversation going, a lot of our young athletes oftentimes are really focused on how they're performing on the court, but they don't sometimes think about what's happening off the court. So can you tell me a little bit about why you'd recommend what you call a lifestyle and sleep audit?
Yes, absolutely. I think sometimes as athletes, we're so focused on the outcomes, but we aren't really focusing on what's going on in our day-to-day lives and how much that can actually impact how we are performing. So whenever I work with athletes one-on-one, we do a little audit. And again, that sounds like a big finance term to some, but for me, it's just really looking through day-to-day habits and seeing, is that supporting where I want to be?
Absolutely. So if I'm a young athlete, I'm sitting down to work with you, what do I need to do to be self-reflective about that audit? What do I need to start thinking about in terms of my habits? Where do you direct me?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing we would do is look at your goals, maybe short-term and long-term goals. Maybe you are hoping to make that national team, and maybe in the short term, you're looking to win the next tournament that's coming up. And then we're going to talk about your day-to-day. What time are we waking up? What do you do when you wake up? What's the first thing you're doing? Are you journaling or are you scrolling on TikTok? Are you eating breakfast or are you rushing out the door and grabbing an energy drink? So there's going to be little decision trees that we're doing all day long, and some are going to get us quickly to our goal and some might take us the roundabout way. And so there's no judgment at all. It's really just reflecting on, these are choices I'm making daily, and are they supporting my short and long-term goals? So it's going to look different for every single athlete, and it can also help us decide, like, is that the athlete I want to be? And so that's how we would go through it. And like I said, it's individual to each athlete, but I think we can all just make a run through our sleep habits, our nutrition habits, maybe our social habits, and our school habits, of course, because if we're looking to make a collegiate team, the academic piece is going to be important as well. So those are just some starting places I'd go.
I love the framing of what are your short and long-term goals, and then thinking about that decision tree. And I really think that's a practical thing for athletes to think about too, is that if we take the judgment out of it, we just say, hey, I have the path to go here, here.
Mm-hmm.
Which one did I choose? Then you can take it back to the goals and say, all right, when I was at this particular decision tree, which of these ways is more supportive of my goals?
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So as you think about working with different ages of athletes, how does that self-assessment change maybe as the athlete grows in their competitive career, maybe changes competitive context?
Yeah, I think at a minimum, most athletes I work with need focus on the basics. And so even though, yes, as we get older, as we can be at higher levels, we may have higher demands in our days. But I think if we can all get back to the basics and be okay with the boring routine and doing it day in and day out and staying consistent, that's actually going to get us to success faster than adding in the fancy supplements and maybe the, trending training program that you saw online. I think it's not always doing more. So yes, there's going to be different demands at higher levels, but the basics really are what I see move the needle the most, no matter the level of athlete I'm working with.
I'm so glad you said that, Brooke, because I think oftentimes we have this view that your context wildly changes as you're moving up in competitive level, or maybe you're moving from high school to college to maybe some pro play. But really the basics are the basics. They don't change for us.
Yeah.
And one of those basics is sleep. So when we see an athlete who's maybe recognizing, okay, in the decision tree, I keep making choices that are impacting my sleep.
Right.
How do you help guide them through maybe a better sleep hygiene on the way or when they're at home to incorporate into their training?
Yeah, for sure. So basics, boring would be choosing a bedtime. And maybe if you're going to bed at midnight right now, can we make it 11? And then we're doing that every single night. And it's a non-negotiable, setting up those non-negotiables for yourself. And again, it's not that you are failing if you don't meet that, but it's good to keep little promises to yourself, and that builds confidence over time. So I would say choose a bedtime and stick to it each night, and do the same thing with your wake up time. So if we're trying to get 8 hours of sleep, can we go 11 to 7 and do that every single day? And then building on that repetition the same way you are with a skill that you're working on the court. Like, those are things we have to do in our day-to-day life to build that confidence piece.
Perfect. I love the focus on consistency, right? Again, we think we need to make these huge changes, but really it's just about consistency day in and day out. As you think about an athlete, maybe who has a few decision tree areas, maybe sleep is one of them, maybe some nutrition is one of them, maybe how much they're on their phone or interacting with folks is one of them. How do you help them progressively find things to change so that it's not changing everything all at once?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why I love my job so much, is that the idea of working with a sports dietitian is it's over time, and it's not just a one-off session. Just like therapy, you don't think you have something to talk about, and you sit down and, wow, I didn't realize I need to drink more water, or whatever silly little thing you don't realize. And we work on one task at a time, and we get to see change over time, and ultimately it becomes a habit. And those, of course, are not created in just one meeting. So yeah, I think if we can just focus on one thing, whether it's adding more protein or getting more quality sleep, we just focus on that for the month or 2 months or however long we need, and then we move on to the next skill.
Yeah. Awesome. Any other recommendations you have for maybe our younger athletes as they think about doing these types of audits with themselves?
Yes. So sometimes you might not know how to start or what you need to change. And so I think just keeping it simple on, am I waking up rested? Do I have energy throughout the day, whether I'm at school or with my friends and family, or if I'm at practice? Just having energy for your day is a really good sign if you're fueling your body with enough. And then also, how am I recovering? So am I always sore? Of course, we're going to be sore as athletes, but is it this prolonged soreness where it's actually affecting me outside of my sport as well? Am I building muscle? If that's my goal, I'm working really hard, but yet I'm not seeing any changes. Those can be 3 really good places to start. And if you've answered the opposite of what you want to be in any of those, then it would be a good sign that we could manipulate hydration, fueling, post-workout fueling, and then that sleep habit. So those would be some good places to start.
Awesome. One final question for you here. If a young athlete is just struggling to be reflective, is there a recommendation you might have for them to go to a particular place or a cue that will get them started in being reflective?
Yeah, I think ultimately, sport should be fun. And if you're not having fun or you're not seeing progress, it could just be a good moment to take a pause and just think about your goals and what you have control of, and really controlling those controllables. And I think reflection is in your own brain, and you have power over that. There's a lot of things we can't control in life, especially with sport. It's tough, but we can reflect. And I think knowing that we have that power, I think that should give athletes confidence.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Brooke.
Awesome. Thank you.